Panelist.
I could hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can there, Sunshine. How you doing today?
I'm in the Biz Women Rock studio because I'm at home. So I'm in my wife's studio here hanging out. And I got Podfest rocking.
Podfest Expo shirt. Nice. Good stuff there. So we are making sure we got recorded. We're live. Yep, we're good. All right. Well, we're excited to have you on here, man. Why don't you share with our audience a little bit of who you are and what amazing event that you were just throwing your T-shirt up there, because we're talking about social media and things like that, but podcasting is such a big avenue, and you're a king at podcasting, and you're helping so many people make their podcast dreams come true as well. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to. You guys were just talking about BNI and networking groups, so just a little brief history. I started by creating my own group in Tampa, known as the Tampa Bay Business Owners, to basically elevate what was going on locally. And we built it to 300 business owners paying yearly dues. It was the premier organization. I was very fortunate to find someone to purchase the company. But in the meantime, somewhere around 2013, we started doing workshops about podcasting. And I have a media background. I used to do TV back in 2004, 2005. And I saw podcasting and I'm like, man, this is it. This is revolutionizing audio. It's the next generation. We saw a hockey stick effect at the time of listeners, but nothing close to what's about to happen, and not enough content. So we did a meetup, and then I did 2 workshops in 2014. And literally, I remember I was in bed and I stood straight up, and Katie's like, "You okay?" And I said, "Someone has to do a national conference for podcasters." So at the time, we had just done 2 workshops, and my wife said to me very wisely, she goes, we do 150 events a year. Don't you think you might want to sleep on it and just think about that? And I'm like, yeah. So I just shelved the idea because she knows me all too well. She's like, take it easy there, big boy. You got 150 things going on.
So what were those 150 events though?
Like you guys are doing social media. We were teaching social media in 2009. Gary Vaynerchuk was one of my first speakers. He had just done it was when South by Southwest had just launched a tech track, and then he came to us literally 6 months later.
Nice.
So my first group of speakers, he had Wine Library TV. He didn't even know what he was going to do next. He was in transition. So I got to see all these guys from the ground floor. Now here's a lesson learned from me for anyone out there listening. When I was teaching social media in 2009, I thought everybody was teaching social media in 2009. That couldn't be further from the truth. Therefore, I localized my content when I should have internationalized my content. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was a faux pas on my part. I would have people all over the state of Florida driving 3-4 hours for the content. It should have dawned on me, if they're driving from Miami, I'm in Tampa, by the way. If they're driving 4 hours from Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, I have something that's a little bit bigger than just Tampa. I, for whatever reason, thought, there's a Scott Carson in every city, or Chris Krimitsos doing this already. And that's just, look in hindsight, it's a lesson learned. But with podcasting, I didn't miss the beat. I saw it for what it was. I saw the trend growing. My wife and I came home from a meetup. Steve Cherubino was like a friend of mine. He was doing Nuts at Night. It was Android App Addicts, and it was about it was technology. And at the end of the meetup, we had 14 people. I said, "How many people you have listening to your show?" He goes, 4,000, and he started to apologize for the number. He's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get my numbers up." I'm like, dude, I just promoted all month for 14 people to show up. You got 4,000 when you go home. There's nothing to apologize. I go, I need to know more about what you're doing. I said, he goes, really? I go, yeah, don't apologize for 4,000 people listening to what you have to say. Now, the problem with any of these mediums, just like I just told you about myself not having an awareness about my numbers when I first started, same thing for a lot of these podcasters. They didn't know 4,000, 10,000. They didn't know that was phenomenal. So I got home and I said to my wife, Katie, she goes, what? I go, I'm starting a podcast. And she goes, about what? I go, I don't know, man. I'm just excited. I just love the medium. I'm just going to start one. I don't even care what it is. She goes, well, I want to start one too. Now, luckily, we had a really great business consultant in Florida where we have an embarrassment of riches because everybody leaves their state and all their connections do not transfer with them once they go over our state line. So we actually wound up having a good friend that was a Fortune 10 consultant in the DC area that had to start from scratch. So he was our consultant, and he very wisely said, hey guys, you're doing 150 events a year. There's no way both of you could start a podcast and something doesn't break.
Right.
So he said, why don't one of you do one? The other one supports the other one. So my wife, as you could see behind me, she had this thing about helping business women. And as a marketer, I said, look, I don't have a good market. If you do a show for women by women, my only caveat is you do not allow men on the show, at least for the first year or two. Now, my wife is not a feminazi, but I know that she, in the beginning, she would want to put a guy on the show. When you're marketing, you want to establish position before you do that. So that was my only request, was like, be true to the brand for a year or two, and then you have earned the respect of your audience. You could do whatever you want. So she agreed to that, and we started marketing, and literally it took off. I mean, within the first month, she had 20, 30,000 downloads, and the rest is history. Her brand now is an international brand. I saw that she needed help with resources because there wasn't a lot of tech help. And we started the Florida Podcast Association. And now we're in our 5th year for PodFest. It's a huge conference that we do once a year in Orlando. Scott, loved having your energy there, and look forward to having you again and again. But PodFest has become a destination for people all over the world. We attract people from Europe, South America, all over the North America. And it's been an amazing ride for me in helping hundreds upon hundreds of content creators.
Yeah, I mean, first time went this year, and it was just like it was literally a warm family event. It wasn't, nobody had any airs. You had such an amazing event, and I think it comes straight from that you've got such a big heart trying to help people be successful. The people that you have working also do it. We got Stephanie Hart on here, going to be on here later today as well.
Stephanie's awesome.
Stephanie's awesome. Tom Hazard. But that's the beautiful thing, is that you work hard. You're trying to help everybody there get over that hump to launch their stuff. And you had what, 400 people at the one just recently?
No, recently it was just under 700.
700, my apology.
No, it's okay. It's good because I want it to feel as intimate as possible, because it feels like you could meet everybody and it's approachable. And that is the culture we're really growing, and that's what we want.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see it going? Where do you see PodFest and podcasts going here? I know it's a crystal ball question. I mean, there's almost 600,000 different podcasts out there, but we don't know how many are really truly active.
Yeah,
still.
There's 550,000, and of that, I bet you, I don't know, 200, 250 maybe are active, if that.
So where do you see it going?
So right now, podcasting. Here's the thing. When I still speak, most people aren't listening to podcasts yet. So we have to wean people off of their radios. So you have, I'm assuming, Scott, you listen to podcasts. I listen to some podcasts. I listen a lot on YouTube too. I like watching my podcasters on YouTube. So you're going to see an integration of video and audio, and you're going to see it all colliding. It's happening now. Audio, though, is the easiest thing for. So let me go through some stats here. So, I just came back from VidCon. VidCon is the world's largest video conference. And if you're in the tweens, anywhere from 12 to 19, that group of kids only cares about one thing, and that's video and Instagram. So let's say you're trying to target them with audio. You're not really going to reach them unless you're on video. That's just, I saw it over and over. They heard audio, they ran away from our booth. So that's something you need to be cognizant. Now, when someone hits about 22, they start ingesting content somewhere after college. And that audience is growing, and it's growing via their habits. So you have to understand, we're at like the 10% mark, if that, because in order for podcasts to hit mainstream, everybody has to be listening to podcasts. And then you're going to have what we call podcast power users. A podcast power user is someone who listens to 10 to 20 podcasts. The average listener is going to listen anywhere from 4 to 5 of their favorite podcasts. All these habits are being established. So the people that get started, people like you, Scott, and you claim what I call you stake you stake your claim, whatever your niche is. Yep. You might grow quickly, you might not, but over time, what happens is because you were in there earlier than others. There's also you get more gravity on your. I don't know how the ranking works. All I know is people have been out longer. It's more forgiving when you make mistakes. The way the search engine works, you still are usually at the top somewhere. Because you've been around longer and you've been building a decent audience, where people that come on later have a tougher time. So anyways, that's where I see it growing. PodFest, Podfest will eventually be a 5,000 to 10,000 person conference. It's probably going to follow a VidCon and Playlist. So there's 2 large conferences in the space of video. Same thing for podcasting. I happen to have one of them. And then when it gets to 5,000, 6,000 people, I could decide if I want to still run it, or by that time what happens is a media company like Viacom or CBS, they usually scoop down and buy you for 20 to 30 time multiples, because it's very difficult to start a conference in any space and then have a part of that market share. So for me, my goal though with Podfest is to make it the most community orientated environment that I can, and to hold on to it as long as I can. I'm excited running Podfest. We're in now our next year is our 5-year anniversary, and it's just an exciting time. But I've been traveling the country teaching people about podcasting, and it's an exciting time that we live in. Audio right now is in a renaissance. It's very similar to when radio first came out. The only difference is there is no regulatory body that governs a podcast, and they never figured out, the government never figured out how to get their hooks into podcasting. Therefore, there's no what we call geofencing. So I made the official documentary, The Messengers, a podcast documentary, and I'm using this as an example. When we went to go distribute it, our distributor's like, great, you're in North America, you got all these great places. Well, on the Facebook groups, podcasters are like, hey, I'm geo-fenced out, and I had to learn what the heck does that mean. Basically, I have to pay regulatory bodies to get it into Australia, New Zealand, to get it into Europe, and what that means is they have I forgot what I call it, but let's say a review. Yeah, I have to get it reviewed by their film commission or whatever it's called.
Right.
But I got to pay $1,500 per area to get my movie in there that might only make $100 in downloads. That's movies, because they figure out how to geofence people out. Podcasting, you have a podcast, you're in 162 countries or however many countries there are in the world. And if you want to learn geography, just look at your download numbers. You'll learn about countries you didn't know existed. My wife, I look at some of them, I thought I knew geography. I have to look like, what is that? And it's like some island out in the middle of nowhere, and there's 2 people listening. Right, Scott? You know what I'm talking about.
You're big in the island of John. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're like, what is that?
Yeah. Where the heck is that going? Exactly. What I love about what you guys do is you do a lot of roundtables, which is great. The roundtable networking the first night of the event, putting everybody, switching it up, people getting outside of their comfort zone, can't really be an introvert, got to be an extrovert to get out and talk with people. That's a phenomenal thing. And I'm sure you've seen some great relations blossom out of that over the last couple of years, huh?
Yeah, we developed that from the local networking, learning when you do these meetings, right, what differentiates a group. And I had an actuary figure out a mathematical equation. And the challenge to him was, I need people to switch their seats the least amount of times to meet the maximum amount of people. How can we make that happen? So we sit 7 people at a round table, and it's built out in a grid. So it's 7 times 7. It's built in a grid of 49. Every table is numbered 1 through 7. And we know that we could change seats 4 or 5 times, and you'll never bounce into the same person twice. So you'll wind up meeting 28, 30 people you never met before. And Scott, you saw that. Now you have a warm market of people, but you also might meet someone tomorrow that you need to connect to someone you met yesterday. So next year I'm working on having a trivia night before we do the strategic alliance. And we're going to basically start creating tribal warfare. Each round table will be competing against the other one for like some kind of cool, maybe YouTube, audio, online trivia. And then I'm trying to raise about $10,000 or $20,000. So we'll have prizes 1 through 10. So it makes it very competitive for everybody to hang in there and compete and have some fun. And then we'll do the strategic alliance the next day.
Nice. What do you think is stopping people? Because I'm part of the community, part of the Facebook group, and it's great seeing people get on there. Hey, I just filmed my first episode, but it's been 6 months. What do you think is the biggest thing that's keeping people from taking action?
The biggest thing is the little voice in their head that says, who am I to have a podcast and who would listen to me? So that is the number one fear. I cannot tell you, bar none. What I do now is I found an amazing young lady in Baltimore, and she's a specialist in anti-money laundering compliance for banks. So I helped her start the Compliance Times and Anti-Money Laundering podcast, right? Very simple. But I remember she saying, there's other people have been doing it longer in the space. I go, everybody thinks that, but you're a different voice. You're a unique voice. And what I do now is Dave Jackson has an episode with Monica Rivera where he covers that exact topic. So I just send that episode to the person that's having that. And they always thank me for it. They're like, wow, thank you for sending me that episode. That really calms my fears. And then people ask you, what if someone listens to this? I go, that's great, right? Don't you want people to listen to it? It's when they don't want to listen to it that's the problem. We'll figure that out. So you always play with the fears. They're usually irrational, but we all have this voice in the head. Why would anyone listen to me? And what I tell beginners, a friend of mine used to say this, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if you know something more than someone else, then you have something of value to, pay it forward. And as you grow, you learn more.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. Everybody is attracted to different people. We identify with different people, whether it's voice, race, sex, color.
Absolutely.
There's so many different ways to slice and dice that up to really kind of help you identify your audience. What Elijah we may have the same opinion on something, but the way you say it reaches a different audience better than it reaches me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that is something. One of our speakers actually said it earlier, was the fact that, yeah, you may not feel like you deserve to be in this space, but there's a good group of people that will only understand it coming from you. Like you're going to be the only one that is going to explain whatever it is that you do, properly. And, knowing that, you're like, okay, well, now I just need to figure out who those people are.
Uh-huh. Right.
Listen, when we were in California, Tyler Sheff, Gabe Eloisi, and I, we bought tickets to go to the Comedy Store. And we saw literally Joe Rogan. I mean, we saw the best comedians in the world. There was 20 of them, okay? At the end, we all compared notes. There was one guy I hated, two of the other guys loved, then vice versa. So we all have our preferences, and you can never predict who likes what. Or there was two female comedians. I thought one was great. I don't like the other one. My other friend thought, both were phenomenal. So we all have our tastes, and there's room for everybody. If you have, it was like 20 of the most popular comedians today, literally in a room of 100 people. Joe Rogan put the showcase around. It was 15 minutes per person. And literally it's like, okay, who do you pick? I'm going to like at least 4 or 5 of those people I'm going to follow online. And that's the other thing. I might like 5 different people for 5 different reasons. And there's times I want to listen to this person then I'll listen to this other person.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely, and you got to watch out for that Tyler Sheff dude. You got to watch out.
Yeah, Tyler. He's a character. We had a blast. Listen, you guys got to come out with us. So what we're doing now is we're creating a troupe. When we all go to conferences, we just all hang out and have a blast. It was a really good time.
It was obvious. Now, the question, VidCon, did you get your glow sticks?
Listen, there was a ball pit next to us where kids were just jumping into ball pits. And then at the end of one night, you see all the employees like looking. And I go up there, just being a wise guy. I go, what's the matter? You guys lost a kid in there? And they go, no, someone must have lost a Rolex or something. But they were looking through the ball pit for some precious metals or something. You could tell like someone's job was on the line. But anyways.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
And Facebook Watch was next to us too.
All right. Where do you see the most amount of opportunity? Are there a specific niche of podcasts that you think are underserved or doing really well in the market right now?
Well, the business in the comedy niche is the most first to have been saturated, okay? That doesn't mean there isn't tons of opportunity. It just means a lot of people woke up early to those areas to get their podcasts up. That's all that means, because there's still so much room. I saw a lot of movement in the kid and family area. There's not enough content. It's a bunch of Disney podcasters, which is phenomenal, but that's it, with a couple other weird content that doesn't even fit the category, a lot of it. So we created the kid-friendly joke of the day, kid-friendly animal fun facts. I'm going to be launching kid-friendly geography, kid-friendly history, kid-friendly word of the day. So it's a learning aid, and that has really taken off. Health and wellness still needs really good shows. The religious niche needs some good shows. Right now I'm working with a pastor up in Baltimore that I picked up as a client, and he's I can't say what he's doing, but it's going to transform. So what he said, he's like, all these pastors have their message out there. I said, yeah, they do, but they're not packaging it in a way that's what I would call digestible via audio. And that's what people forget. How do you package your content? Just because you have it doesn't mean it's going to be consumed on audio format. So, it's on-demand searchable content, and you got to think of it that way.
So let's talk about a little bit of that, because it's obviously social media day, and there's been social media weeks and stuff like that. What would you give, if somebody's a brand new podcaster, what would you say is some of the best tips you could give them for getting the word out there or sharing their message versus just recording an episode and throwing it on iTunes?
Okay, so the best way to grow your audience is targeting, obviously, on like a Facebook channel or Instagram, depending where your audience is. But the number one way to grow up a podcast audience is by joint venturing with another podcaster in a like niche. There's nothing that comes close to that. So if you have some peers that started out and they all have the same numbers or similar, or maybe a little bit more, and you guys could literally collaborate where you do each month, everybody has someone run through 3 or 4 shows, you'll see your numbers increase almost overnight, because the same listener will listen to 2 or 3 shows within a sub niche. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm competing with that person. Actually, you're not. You guys should be actually catapulting each other to the top and growing your audiences. Right now, what's really hot, and this is what we saw up in VidCon. VidCon was a great place for us to exhibit. Education, it was lacking. But the boys did find some good tips, and one of them was LinkedIn video. Microsoft is doing a huge push on LinkedIn video. Mm-hmm. So if I was anyone watching what's going on, I'd be watching LinkedIn video. And then Overcast, which is the top player in the Android market, allows you to purchase ads to promote your podcast, and they're direct purchase per subscriber. So that has actually almost doubled my numbers. Just been playing with that for about a month. I wouldn't share that with too many people. So Overcast is what I would look into, and that's probably the number one channel right now. You could grow subscribers overnight. So you're paying per subscriber. You're not paying per Facebook ad to convert, but they convert for you.
Wow, that's a good tip. That's definitely a good tip there for you. Good stuff there for you. We're talking about video being big. Are you seeing, and you have a better idea of this, are you seeing people that are using both audio and video having a little bit faster success because they're be able to use like the YouTube platform and the searchability of YouTube to help them grow their audience?
So here's what I saw with the YouTube audience. The challenge with the YouTube audience is they're lazy. And what I mean by that is there's a distinct advantage a YouTuber has over a podcaster, but that disadvantage is to the podcaster's favor, and I'll explain what I mean by that. A YouTuber has monetization embedded in their YouTube channel thanks to Google. So what happens is most YouTubers focus on that monetization and not anything else. When PewDiePie made his Nazi humor or whatever he did, and Disney and everybody said, we don't want to advertise on anything explicit, meaning anyone that cursed on a channel literally lost all their ad revenue overnight. Then they readjusted it. So I literally met YouTubers that have 250,000 subscribers that are getting $50 a month, which they should be making like 250,000 or more through all the different channels. Now, podcasters, because of that disadvantage, they're actually uniquely advantaged. Because a podcaster, that's why our conference does so well, they have to learn how to monetize, they have to learn how to collaborate and joint venture. Otherwise, they won't succeed financially. So because of that, a podcaster tends to be, the ones that know what's going on, tend to be more active to figure out, how do I joint venture? How do I create my consulting, my masterminds? What are the areas? How do I get my merch out there? So there's a lot of room in the podcasting space. Now, the question is, will they cross over? I'll give you an example. Like I said earlier, if your audience is people in their tweens, there is no need for you to do a podcast unless you're looking to reach an older audience. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I want to be very clear because they do not care for audio right at this moment.
It's basically knowing who your true audience or who your true target audience, your avatar is. If you're doing the 35 to 65 route, I would not, that's a different route than
all day audio. Now video, what video does, and I'm a brand builder. So literally you could say, hey, Chris, what brands did you build? I could go through 10 brands, but my name was never on it. My name might have been associated with it, but as a podcaster, if you're looking to build your personal brand, I'm a big proponent to put your face, your image, and your logo. 2-3 years ago, I would tell you don't do that. In today's world, I think it's just as important to brand your image as well as your whatever your brand is called. Because what I've noticed throughout the years, podcasters like Pat Flynn, I know podcasters that have numbers much bigger than his, but their face is not on their cover art. So when Pat Flynn now is on a trade show, everybody recognizes him. Well, What does that do? That accelerates the opportunities that he gets compared to someone that you might know, oh, Bigger Pockets. You have to kind of know who that person is, or someone has to tell you about that person, which is fine. But Pat Flynn's getting opportunities left and right. So you want to brand your image unless you're really against it or something. And then for podcasters, I like the Joe Rogan deal where he streams his podcast, but that's about a $10,000 setup. He's got a TriCaster, which you don't know what that is. That's a media switcher. It helps him switch cameras.
Right.
He's got Jamie, who's his full-time technical director, basically producer. So if you have the resources, I think you should build up to it. If you don't, I'm not a big proponent of putting crappy footage up on YouTube for the sake of having it, because then you look at the download numbers. They get like 10, 20. I'd rather someone do a couple of key educational videos that are really specific and throw them up there, and that way your audience could get a feel of who you are, your style, and you'll see those videos will get a couple thousand views. I'd rather have premium content rather than just throwing stuff up just to do it. That's my personal opinion. Now, some people, here's where it doesn't work. If for whatever reason, we have a friend that he's a plant expert. He knows plants. Like I'm talking about the Latin names. His videos are the crappiest videos you've ever seen. And he'll tell you as such. But there's no one else talking about tropical plants on YouTube the way my buddy Randy does. So he has close to 10,000 subscribers, which doesn't sound like much, but when it's Latin name tropical plants, it equals a full-time salary of people buying stuff that he has.
Right.
I could see that.
You talked about him at Podfest, definitely out there. He came up and talked a little bit, if I remember.
Oh, yeah, he played the harmonica, too. I don't know if you were in that room. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
But if you have specialized knowledge and there's no competition, it's same as any other company. If there's no competition, you can mess up a lot of the technical details, but the fans can only get it from you. But the problem is you'll have someone that sees that, be like, oh, I could do that. Like, no, if you're talking about something general, you have 100 people you got to compete with. You better be good at what you're doing if you're going to go to transfer over to the video category.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That was great. You had Roberto Blake there talking about a lot of the YouTube stuff. Was something I really enjoyed listening to him talk about the YouTube stuff and some of the tips that he was given there as well.
We're going to build out, dude. YouTube is going to be huge next year. So the reason, like now you're set up, you got your thing going. I feel that the Scott Carsons of the world that want to really dive deep, we're going to have our track of YouTube is going to be much more robust. I went to VidCon looking for influencers, and I found a whole bunch of them, and we're going to be bringing them over to Podfest. So we're literally 80% of our content is podcasting, but as you know, you have to know how to sell courses online, online publish books. LinkedIn will definitely be classes we're doing. YouTube, Instagram, it all integrates. So I have to make sure that all our content creators understand what's going on.
Right. Mm-hmm. So question for you here before we let you go here. When's the next dates for Podfest? What's the next dates for?
It's March 7th to the 9th, 2019 in Orlando at the Wyndham International Hotel. We're working on some amazing individuals. Scott, I'd love to have you speak because you're a success story straight out of Podfest. So let's talk about that offline. And then, and you're part of our, Tyler and I always, we love you. So that's going to be in Orlando, and it's going to be an amazing time. We also have some of our educators that have followings. We're allowing them to do pre-day events with their fans, or not their fans, but their community, let's say. And then we have opportunities where they could just pay a small fee and have their own room to do breakouts, masterminds. So we're opening it up to our community so they could flourish. Because those of you that don't know, when you reserve a hotel, it's a 6-figure commitment. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to do that, I said to the hotel, I want a couple extra days. And they're like, do you know what you're going to do? I go, nope, but I know I'm going to talk to Tyler Sheff, Scott Carson, whoever, and say, if you guys want to bring in your fan bases, we have some extra rooms, use it. It's not going. It costs me. It's a nominal fee. It'll cost me a couple grand on a 6-figure deal. What is that in the big scheme of things? So we're excited, man. Podfestexpo.com, and I would tell anyone that wants to learn about podcasting, check out. I brought this in. Check out the Messengers, a podcast documentary. It kind of talks about the passion of what made these. This is about the people that started 7, 8 years ago when they had like one listener. And what kept them going. And it talks about like, why did you guys do it when everybody was making fun of them? And they now are the world leaders in their space, being flown all over the world. It's a really powerful documentary. It's on Amazon Prime and iTunes. We got 2 distributors out of the West Coast wanted to carry this out. We found one, and we're really proud of that.
It's a great movie. Well done, Chris. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's awesome stuff. Well, hey, man, I won't take too much of your Saturday. I know you get a busy.
Yes. We're off.
Time there. We got
birthday parties. We got another one on the way, and Little Sedona's friend has a this is a birthday party season, so we got to head out to a birthday party in Fort Myers. But hey, it's a pleasure meeting. Scott, pleasure seeing you again, and pleasure meeting your co-host. You guys are awesome. I enjoyed listening to it before I got on the show here.
Well, thanks, buddy.
Pleasure's ours, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, guys, be good, okay?
We'll do. We'll see you later, bud.
Be good.
Once again, guys, check out podfest.com. Taking place, great event.
Podfestexpo.com, just making sure.
Sorry. Oh my God. Get the wrong name here. I need more
That's
coffee.
okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
PodfestExpo.com. Check it out. Get signed up for it. Well worth the trip. Just a great event out there. So, all right, cool. That takes us on to who our next guest is here. Just flipping over here real fast. We are rocking them out here this morning. We got them packed in here. All right, so our next guest is Lauren Maffeo with Essex Networks for Women. So let me get her live here. Hang on here.